So session today is titled When Brands Meet Influencers, Insights from Both Sides. Before we kind of get into the thick of the session today, let me just give you a bit of information about Melt Content and who we are and what we do. We're a full-service digital marketing agency. We're 4 years old, still relatively young, but we've managed to carve a nice niche, particularly in the travel sector. We specialise in organic search strategy, and that kind of encompasses SEO, using content as a vehicle to promote SEO and organic strategies, but we're also very much centred around thinking about how you can get the best of your organic strategy through execution via social media, through on-page or off-page campaigns, which leads us nicely into our kind of outreach area, which Hannah heads up. So on that note, let me just give you some intros as far as the Melt team are concerned. We've got, in fact, there are a few of us dotted around, hidden in the audience. We've got Helena Hall, who's our Chief Commercial Officer. Hannah Butcher, who's our lead influencer strategist. Sarah Campbell, who's our business development exec. In the audience, we've also got Carl Cromie. Carl, if you want to just stand up and wave around, he's our business development director. And we've also got Rich with us, Rich Kimber, who's our editor. I'm delighted to welcome two very important and very influential people into this session. We've got Brenna. Brenna, do you want to just stand up and say hi?
Sure. So I'm Brenna Holeman. I run the travel blog Battered Suitcase, but I also kind of work on the other side of things because I also work with Expedia and help Expedia hire their influencers. So I have kind of a unique perspective because I see both sides of influencer marketing.
Great, thanks Brenna. And Macca, do you just say hi?
Hi guys, I'm Macca. I am the Brit from Brit and Abroad, travel blogger, photographer, videographer, quite a few things. So I'm going to go through today as well why you should work with brands and influencers together.
Great stuff. Okay, so I'm going to hand you over to Hannah, and I need to just swap the mic over. So.
Hi everyone. As I was introduced, I'm Hannah, so I lead the influencer marketing team at Melt. And today I'm going to take you through a bit of an intro to influencer marketing before we kick off with some more info and the guest speakers as well. So first, a little bit about me. My background, I've been working in digital marketing since 2009. I've done a few great opportunities in speaking, so Brighton SEO and the Content Marketing Show. So all of those topics you can see are quite related to blogger outreach. So I've done a talk called Hello, my name is Blogger, Don't Make Me Mad, and how to guarantee a 0% response rate from blogger outreach. And I'm also an ongoing State of Digital writer. In my spare time, outside of work, I'm also a blogger myself, really passionate about travel and adventure. Kind of call myself an adopted Canadian because I grew up there, so really passionate about travel and also really passionate about working with travel brands. So I've listed some of the ones that I've worked with in the past. The first thing I want to cover today is this question. So what is influencer marketing? Well, there's so many descriptions out there for what you could be using, but simplified, we've called it brand messages delivered by people who are trusted online as an authority on a topic and liked by others. So I really want you to keep that topic point in mind and the likability factor. So first, where are you going to find influencers online? We call them influencers in our department because that's a sort of catch-all, but obviously there's multiple segments within this. So looking at different channels. First, you've got blogs. So as you can see here, you guys are featured. We've got the influencers who sort of primarily blog. We would just call them bloggers ourselves. And then another platform, video. So whether you use YouTube or Vimeo, we would call them vloggers, and obviously if they're on YouTube, we would call them YouTubers. This is just an example from Kristen Sarah, a travel blogger who has posted a video called Most Amazing Things to Do in Thailand, and she's accrued more than 120,000 views on this particular video. And then going to social media as well. We can have a look at social media specific titles such as Instagrammers. Here's an example, Girl Eat World, and this one image has accrued over 12,000 likes, and it's just a picture of her in China with a snack on a stick next to a tourist attraction. So it's the kind of thing that people want to see, and it's quite an interesting image, but sort of generating that amount of likes for that kind of image shows you how powerful it can be. And then there's just an example from Twitter as well, Travelista Jess, and that's just an image of her on one of her unforgettable moments swimming with whale sharks. But what you have to remember is that most influencers are going to be found on multiple channels and not just one, even if they specialize on just one. And that's because things like promotion are really important. So there might be a primary channel, but there'll be other channels as well that will be needed to use to actually gain more of an audience and push that message and do as much as you can with that one piece of content that takes a long time to create. Just an example of this is Heroine in Heels. I'll just use her as an example. She's a London-based lifestyle blogger primarily, but she does a lot in travel. And she primarily functions on her website or her blog, but she's quite prolific on social media as well. So she's very, very active on Twitter. And she's also started doing a travel vlogging series recently, especially after one of her press trips to India, where she went to a few locations. So if you looked into her more, you would see her featuring these videos on her social media and also within her website, which you can kind of just see slightly to the left there, where she's sort of embedded that into a blog post. So now we know what it is and sort of where to find people. But how do we define the difference between an influencer and a celebrity? Because in my opinion, they're two very different things. So I want sort of you to decide whether you think there is actually a difference between them. But what we've kind of done is describe them as this. So a celebrity can influence their followers with sort of a wider mass appeal, whereas an influencer can become sort of more widely known on that subject or topic that we were talking about before. So to sum it up, an influencer is a person who can make their voice heard and respected to their own audience. And I've got a couple of quotes here for you, which kind of help to define this a bit more. So Matthew Nell from Samsung, who leads the social customer experience, has said that an influencer is a self-built star using social channels, whereas a celebrity is built up by traditional channels. So they might be an actor, a chef, someone who's done something outside of social media, and they've brought that following with them to the online environment. And here, Ron Stott from Microsoft, who is the Senior Communications Manager, has also made a great point with celebrities and influencers, that it's a question of mass reach versus mass impact. Influencers carry weight in subjects, celebs bring exposure. So it's kind of just thinking, you know, do you want to have that wide mass appeal and target lots and lots of different people in your audience? Or do you want to sort of go for a smaller audience of more engaged and receptive people? And this is why it's important, because when it comes to influencers, it's possible to have sort of related subtopics. So you know that an influencer is going to specialize in something. There's also loads of subtopics within that as well. And in travel, there's more to it than just travel. We know that's a very, very broad term, and there's so much that goes within it. So if we think, what can we dig it down into? We could have sites that cover long distance walks, for example, or just ones that cover luxury hotel reviews, or even ones that cover gap year adventures. So it's really important to remember that there's lots of subtopics within travel, and obviously you're going to get a more generalistic site as well, but there's loads of different smaller topics within that. So if your brand specializes in something, has a new product that you want to push, or there's a direction that you want to go down, that you'll always be able to find someone that actually suits what you want to get across and sort of joining those products up. And this is just something I want you to take away today. eConsultancy says that consumers are more likely to trust someone with a smaller reach, but who is respected authority on a particular topic. So again, remembering that people actually want, you know, someone to represent that topic, and they're more likely to have that influence over their audience. A couple more slides from me before I hand over. I just want to take you through a very quick evolution of influencer marketing from the way I've seen it. So when I started in 2009, it was really actually quite easy to work with influencers and bloggers. I did a couple of campaigns for Selfridges & Co. and Holland & Barrett, and all we had to do was kind of like go online, loosely find some people, email them, say, hey, do you want to do this for us? And more often than not, they would say yes, because at that time it was like a bit of a flattery kind of thing, like, oh, a brand's getting in touch with me, that's great, I really want to work on this campaign, whether or not there was any sort of payment or anything like that involved. And we kind of managed to do quite a lot in that way. And it's very different now. There's more channels, more influencers, and more brands who want to get involved with influence marketing. And that ultimately means sort of a greater competition, greater costs, and sort of higher expectations. So it is a lot more complicated to do, but as long as you have a good strategy and reason for doing it, influence marketing can be a really beneficial thing for your brand. Very quickly on quality metrics, it's kind of like, how do you decide who to work with? I think Brenna's going to talk a bit more about sort of quality in her section, but I just want to throw a few ideas out for you. So here are just some of the things that you could be looking at when you actually go to find influencers online. So if you look at the bottom, you can see the Moz toolbar, and you can see DA33, so that's domain authority. And this is something that a lot of brands use when they're trying to sort of register how influential a blogger is. So they'll say, oh, they've got a domain authority of a certain number, that makes them good, that makes them bad. But how do you know that a site that has a domain authority of 33 is going to be any worse or better than one that has 20 or 40? It's really just one metric, and you kind of have to look at a collection of metrics and use your own sort of thoughts really when deciding whether to work with someone. So you can obviously look at social media ones. So the site that I've grabbed this from, Instagram, she has 22.3 thousand followers, Facebook over 2,000, and on Twitter over 17,000. So again, those are a couple of extra metrics you can use, but also don't take those in isolation either, because it's very easy to kind of go online and buy followers, and sadly that happens quite a lot. And I think there's sort of a pushback in the sort of blogger environment now for making sure that that's sort of highlighted, and it's sort of bad practice, but it's worth keeping in mind that it's definitely out there. So don't take social media metrics at face value. And then finally, I've put the award on the side. So again, deciding, that's another contextual sort of factor. You can look at someone and whether they have had an award before. But if they don't have one, again, don't rule them out, because, for example, if they're doing a gap year adventure blog, they might just have 1 year that they're posting about their travels, and they might have not yet had a chance to, you know, go through an award kind of system in that 1 year, and they might have some really great content, and it might be quite aligned to your brand. So remember to keep these things sort of in mind when you're looking at them on their sites. Finally, just a couple of example campaigns from us, so you can sort of see what kind of things you could do with influencers. This is just one example. It's a press trip that we carried out at the beginning of this year for one of our clients, and we sent a US travel blogger to the Caribbean. And the reason that we wanted to do this was because they had a load of resorts listed on their website. There was only 1 or 2 sentences for each of them, and the images that they used on the website were sort of like that size. So you couldn't really get a good idea of what that resort would be like. So we sent her, and we wanted her to highlight all the brilliant things you could do in that resort, on the island, or the activities. And through social media, her blog, and YouTube, she really, really brought them to life. And you know, you can see the sort of video at the bottom there, doing handstands on the beach and all these wonderful adventures. So, you know, it was really, really good for us to be able to do that. And obviously there were some other benefits that we got out of it too, in terms of SEO benefits and things like that too. And finally, one that we've done with Expedia is a UK food map, and that's still live. You can see it online. It's a map of food festivals and events around the UK in 2017, and sort of toggle each month. And what we've done is we've found influencers to sort of promote these events on the map. So rather than just saying, here's a map, post about it, we've actually gone to them and said, you know, do something around the topics within the map and making it a bit more exciting. So we've had people go to all sorts of events across the country, including like the the Food, Drink and Rhubarb Festival. That happened a couple of months ago. But here's just an example of one from Emily's Recipes and Reviews. And she's created some triple chocolate macarons to promote the York Chocolate Festival. So it's just bringing together the influencer specialism as well as the brand asset and finding the relationship between them.
Yep. So we've got another poll. So if you can log back onto Slido if you've come out of it. So the question we want to ask is, what do you understand to be the greatest benefit of using influencer marketing as part of your strategy? Is it brand awareness, increased reach, link building, increased traffic to the site, or you're unsure about the benefits? Now, there's no right or wrong answer. We just want to understand what you believe the greatest benefit is for your business.
So what I'm going to be touching on today is the content marketing framework and where influencer marketing fits into our framework. For those of you that haven't heard of our CMF or our content marketing framework, you can collect a version of our wheel at the front here. There's also on our website, meltcontent.com/CMF for content marketing framework. And this takes you through the whole process from the motivation of a brand, but also understanding the motivation of the user that you're talking to, through to the research and data insight stage, strategy formation, and the content creation. Now we see influencer marketing feeding into a few different stages within our content marketing framework. So that's what I'm going to touch on today. And the main components or the main benefits or opportunities for yourself, we believe are brand awareness, SEO, and social media. So influencer marketing feeds into the CMF or the content framework or your opportunity at the very start. So where you're identifying the subject that you're going to talk about, the content creation that you're going to form, in this initial stages of data and research, influencer marketing has to feature right at the beginning. So this is where you'll find out who is within your target niche, what their captive audience is talking about, what kind of content have they already created, what are the competitors doing, and what types of content and influence can you bring in together. So when you create your content strategy, you can open it up to the influencers to get them involved right at the very beginning. So at this initial stage, it's really about identifying who's within your niche and who could you potentially work with. In the middle stage, it's around the planning and preparation. So you've identified who's talking within your niche, and at this point you want to see whether you can have somebody contribute to your content, or if not contribute, who can be an ambassador. And once you've identified those influencers, it's about finding out whether they're a brand fit. And obviously all of the things that Hannah has mentioned to find out whether they're suitable, but you really want to find out, do they fit your brand and the motivation which is at the core of the content marketing framework? And what value can you add to both? And then at the end, this is when you've gone through the motivation, the data, the research, you've created the strategy, you've got the content, and at this point it's where you're looking to amplify and spread out the reach. Influencers, and this is where you're already working with influencers within the content creation piece. This is your opportunity to extend the reach. So at this point, we see influencers featuring within a very manual outreach process to say, we have something that is of value to you, this may benefit your audience, and would you like to share it with your audience? So it's really finding and split, and how we view it is actually splitting it into two. We see it as niche and mainstream. And so niche influencers would be where you have somebody that's got a very targeted audience, and that might be a small audience, but it's highly engaged and highly relevant. And then on the mainstream, it's probably more general, so a wider audience, but less potentially engaged. So just to recap, influencer marketing fitting into a content marketing strategy is at the start, the middle, and the end. At the start, it's who is within your niche, and are they suitable? What audience do they have, and what are the opportunities? Within the middle, it's can you collaborate with them? Can you bring them into your content creation? And if not to contribute, can they be an ambassador? Are they really interested in what you're producing? And at the end, it's outreaching to see whether you can add value to them and to their audience and potentially share it to their audience. So there's three main areas or opportunities that we see from Melt, and that's SEO, brand awareness, and social media. So within SEO, it's about, the opportunity here we see is organic link building. So again, it's all down to having a really quality piece of content that an influencer would like to collaborate with and engage with and share with their audience. With brand awareness, this is an opportunity to increase reach and gain brand awareness through tapping into their captive audience. And within social media, it's to increase engagement by speaking directly to their captivated audience who already trusts and engages with the influencer. So at this point, I'm very happy to introduce the two guest speakers, and we're going to start with Macca, and he's going to take it from his perspective. So you've seen from our perspective of what influencer marketing is, and then you've got from the content how that feeds in, and now from an influencer's perspective.
Hi guys, so as you can see, my name is Macca. I am the Brit from Britain Abroad, and I'm going to talk to you about kind of my journey into becoming an influencer. I would still say I'm a traditional blogger, I think is the main thing. I started blogging in 2009. My first blog was called Slum Chums. It was just a travel log, I'm not going to lie. It was supposed to be about friends slumming it around the world. It was awful. It died a death, and it should have done, but it really gave me that passion to tell a story. And I couldn't believe it at first. When I first started blogging, it was just to my family and friends back at home. And then people I'd never met before started reading it, and that very much empowered me to become a journalist. When I got back to the UK after traveling for 2 years, I really kind of had this passion for travel and for writing, and that's when I decided that, this is the career path for me. So I decided to become a journalist. I've been working in journalism for about 6 years now. Ever since then, I've been the travel editor of GapYear.com. I've worked on the other side of the fence in PR and social media manager at Gosh PR. And then I was also at the Mail Online, which I probably shouldn't say, but I mean, yeah, it's a fact, which was my last job. And I have been professional as a full-time travel blogger for about 1.5 years now. But Britain Abroad's been going for about 3.5 years. So it's taken 2 years to really get to the point where I was comfortable enough to actually go full-time. And as you'll see at the top there, it's like blogger, presenter, photographer, videographer. You're probably thinking, what are you? I think as a brand, it's very important to think about who you're working with. I mean, if you're a hotel brand and you have a small pot of budget for, say, a hotel review, a journalist, but you also want to get some, photos for marketing materials for like online or for a newsletter, it's going to cost you a lot of money to get that photographer, to get that journalist in. Well, look at people who can do both of those things already. Look at someone who can do a hotel review and get it into a publication, but then can provide you with top quality photos as well. So I think the blogging sphere has kind of like changed somewhat. I think bloggers, it's not just about the writing anymore. They offer so much more. So yeah, I think it's quite important to note that bit. But yeah, this is a day in the life of me, essentially. You probably look at the bottom photos and you think it's all pretty pictures and going to amazing places. But it's not. It's actually, a lot of it is stuck in the back end. I mean, doing like all of my blog posts, I don't know if anyone uses Adobe or not, but the top one is Adobe Lightroom to edit photos. Adobe Premiere is at the bottom to do video. It takes a huge amount of time to create these things. Essentially, when doing a blog post, it's writing, it's editing the photos, it's editing the videos, uploading all into your CMS. You've got to link to products, you've got to promote the client that you're working with, and then once it's live, you've got to promote it on social media. That's Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, Twitter, YouTube. You've got to come up with your own social media strategy, your own marketing strategy. You're a business, and you've got to make sure that that's going all the way forward. And then it's also liaising with clients, giving them post-campaign analytics, talking about SEO. And I do that day after day after day. So you see, the beautiful pictures in Jordan at Petra, and you think, oh, this guy's just on holiday all the time. When I'm not on holiday all the time, when I'm also working, I'm waking up at 7 o'clock in the morning, I'm sitting at the laptop at 8, I'm doing 12 hours just to make sure that I catch up on the work before I'm going out again. So I think a lot of brands kind of see influencers and see their photos and think, this is just a pretty picture. It is, don't get me wrong, but there is so much time and effort and graft to create something like that. So yeah, it's quite important to note. So why should you work with an influencer? Influencers do something so small it almost goes unrecognized, but it's something that brands, despite spending millions of dollars on, simply struggle to do. They influence people. You know, I stand in the middle between the brand and the consumer. You know, you're the brand and you want to sell your product to the consumer. No matter how you drive that message, whether it's through traditional online advertising or whatever other means, at the end of the day, you sometimes need a middleman, which is where influencers come in. I find it staggering that people listen to me. I really do. I always just want to kind of portray a destination or a particular brand in my own way, and I always work with brands that I would work and use with myself. So people listen to me. So it's fantastic when you're going to work with a tourist board or with a hotel group, and you genuinely love that place. You're like, this is just the most amazing place. You've got to come here. You've got to stay here. And then people see that and they're like, of course. I mean, it looks fantastic. We never knew it would be like that. I think a good example of that is we did a huge campaign with the Greenland Tourist Board last year. And we did like a series of videos, loads of blog posts. And people just had no idea that Greenland looked like that. And they kind of like kept on saying like, wow, like this place is stunning. Like, we'd definitely consider traveling there. And that's exactly the point. It's kind of getting your message across to use this influence, to use, the people who are listening to us to get your messages across as well. And as you can kind of see, as you can kind of see on those stats there, essentially about 2/3 of people listen to, bloggers, to vloggers, to whoever like that. And they actually think that, they'll tangibly go on to buy their products and stuff like that. So I don't think it's a case of should you work with an influencer, I think it's a case of not even when, it's just who should you be working with. So I think it's important to talk about money, because I think as brands, it's a bit of a gray area. I'm always very upfront and honest in how much I charge for things. So we just did a big project with Monarch very recently, which is still going live at the moment. So that was £4,000, and essentially that was for 4 days work. We filmed for 4 days. And you think, wow, £1,000 a day, you must be like raking it in. But it's so much more than that. So it was the 4 days work when we're out in Porto doing this branded video, but then it's the talent fee, it's the media buyout. That we kind of sold in 2 blog posts. We actually wrote 4 blog posts in the end. It's social media coverage on Facebook, on YouTube. And so far, that's had 75,000 views. We're hoping to get into the 100,000 next week. Loads of shares, hundreds of comments. And people were saying like, we never knew Porto looked like this. We can't wait to go. Or even people in Portugal saying, I live in Lisbon. I've never been to Porto. I can't wait to go there next weekend and stuff. So it's fantastic, that people really kind of buy into what we're doing. So that's just one example of, branded content. Another is Manfrotto. I don't really know if you guys know Manfrotto. They are a camera brand. They mainly do tripods, backpacks, camera accessories and stuff like that. So this is not necessarily working with a Brit abroad, but using my skills to work with them directly. So I've got a year-long campaign, which is 12 blog posts on their Manfrotto image more. And then this is kind of promoting their products. I'll be deep linking to particular tripods that you can buy, why you should buy it, why is this backpack good for traveling and photography. And it's also brand awareness. Photography is one of my biggest passions. You can dump me in any city around the world. As long as I've got my camera in my hand, I'm happy. And it's brand awareness, because I love this product. I always talk about it. People coming up to me and saying, I love the fact that you've got this tiny little tripod. What is that? Oh, it's a Manfrotto Pixie tripod. It's a great little product. So yeah, it's good. It's kind of once you kind of buy into an influencer and you kind of get them as an ambassador, then they're constantly promoting you all the time. So yeah, I think that's another good little example. So the future, the picture on the bottom right, which is awful, was actually me back in 2009 wearing a tuxedo on the Great Wall of China. It was trying to show the fact that the future of travel blogging and influencers is going to get a lot more professional. I really think it is. It already is. I mean, in the way that I work, in the way Brenna works, it's always on a whole campaign level. We're already delivering things like post-campaign analytics. But yeah, I think that there's going to be more things like professional bodies. There should be contracts. Whoever you're working with, if there's something that you want to get out of the influencer, make sure it's written down. Make sure that they're delivering that. Because if you don't, and they don't do that, then no one's liable essentially for it. They can just be like, you didn't give me enough, example or enough like sphere to work with. That's why I didn't deliver on it. And then you'd be like, okay, well, I haven't actually got what I wanted out of this. So I think like one of the most important things when working with an influencer is to be open and honest. At the end of the day, you're selling a product. Whatever your product is, you want that to generate money. So you want to use an influencer to ensure that you get that result. If you don't tell them that though, then they're not going to do that. So yeah, I think it's going to become a lot more professional in the way that you work with these kind of influencers and stuff. So this is my biggest pet peeve. It's not fun for Louis. This is Louis Cole. He is a wonderful YouTuber. He's not my biggest pet peeve at all. But always make sure you know who you're working with. He's got 2 million subscribers. He's basically a YouTuber celebrity. Like, people go to his channel every single day. He's doing daily vlogs. It's amazing what he does. He's doing like 10, 12, 13-minute videos every single day. It's mind-boggling the amount of content that he's creating. And as you can see, they're getting 50,000 views. Some of his videos have got over 1 million views. As a brand, you must be thinking, wow, 50,000 views. I want that. I want over 1 million views. Do you? Because you have to think about his audience. So going back to the Monarch example, at first they wanted to work with Fun for Louis because they thought, wow, Monarch, that would be brilliant to get 100,000 views or 1 million views or whatever it would be. Let's go to him. But then they started digging a little deeper. His audience predominantly is 14 to 21. How many of those are at the booking stage where they're going to book a flight with Monarch? Essentially, 3 years from 18 to 21. And how many of them are going to go with Monarch? They came to us, they looked at our audience. Our audience is 26 to 40. That is a fantastic market to buy into. I don't know if you guys know of WTM, the World Travel Market, but at every single stage and every single stand we went to this year when we were talking to tourist boards, they said that the main people that they want to work with these days, or the consumers that they want to get to their countries, are at that 26 to 40 stage because they have a bit of money. They're looking to spend that bit of money, but also like once you get someone at that young stage, are they going to come back again in 5 years' time? Maybe not, but they probably will come back in 10 years' time or 20 years' time. Whereas you're trying to get like 60-year-olds, people kind of in that retirement stage or looking towards that because they've got a lot more money, you're only going to get them once. That's not repeat business. So, you might get them many times, of course. But yeah, that's my biggest pet peeve. Always make sure you know who you're working with. I know Brenna's going to go down into looking specifically at the stats. I'm open and honest with my stats.
People keep saying I'm going to talk about it, and I'm thinking, uh-oh.
Oh, yeah. And then I guess it's, I got asked what's my aim as a travel blogger. It's to be Simon Reeve. I mean, look at him, he's gorgeous. He's wonderful at what he does. I do a lot of presenting work. I work with Lonely Planet doing presenting work for them. I've done like a few different shows all around the world, and I want to become Simon Reeve. Am I going to become Simon Reeve? Well, I don't know, that remains to be seen. But this is where you as a brand have got to roll the dice and take a gamble. Because you want to get Simon Reeve to do and promote your product. He's going to cost a lot of money. You get someone like me who could potentially become Simon Reeve. Well, that's great because I'm a lot cheaper. But the thing is if I become the next big thing and you've already got that brand loyalty, then that's massive. You've already paid for it, and it's going to pay you back in dividends. So I think it's very important to look at the fact that you could be trying to get the biggest influencers in the world, the ones with millions and millions of followers. You can get them, but they're going to cost you a huge amount of money. But you really start digging deeper and you really focus on who you think is going to be the next biggest. I think that's massive because once you kind of get that brand loyalty in from the beginning, then it will take you through for years and years to come. And then finally, I got asked what's my biggest adventure. This was me about 2-3 weeks ago, hanging off an ice wall on a glacier in Iceland. In the afternoon and in the evening, we got to see the Northern Lights. It was a fantastic experience. That was working with Lonely Planet. They are starting to do branded content, so they're working with 3 Mobile, and the whole video is essentially about how you can use your mobile abroad. So that's a really interesting example of branded content in terms of a traditional travel company with a mobile phone company kind of merging together, and then also using an influencer to tell the story. So I was the focus of the story. I do a lot of adventure travel blogging, so essentially they'll follow me around using my phone. I didn't use it whilst ice climbing, obviously. It was pretty hard with 2 axes in my hand. But yeah, it was a good adventure, that one. And then finally, you made it through the talk, which is fantastic. You can contact me on any of these channels. I'm always open to talk about absolutely anything. But I put this little graphic in at the bottom just to highlight exactly what this is. This is amplification. This is your brand using influencers to get to many people. We are the ones with an invested audience who listen to us. So we say use us to obviously promote how amazing you guys are as well. Anyway, I think we're on to Brenna now, who's going to talk about...
Well, now I'm not quite sure.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
All right, so I didn't prepare slides. I thought I would just talk, because I can talk for days because I'm a blogger. So we're all used to talking about ourselves. So as I said, my name is Brenna Holeman. I'm from Canada originally. Sorry, Dan, you can see. That's literally all you're gonna get out of, they prepared it, so thank you very much, just from some of my travels. So I went traveling in 2006. Actually, yesterday was my 11-year anniversary of leaving Canada permanently. Well, I thought it was only for 3 months to go backpacking, and then it just turned into a lifestyle and a career. So I've been traveling on my own for 11 years. I'm now based in London, but still I focus on solo female travel, which is a big niche right now. But I actually am quite in an interesting position because I started blogging in 2003. Blogging actually did exist then, back when MySpace was really popular. I didn't have MySpace. I was one step cooler. I had LiveJournal, if anybody remembers LiveJournal, which was a very interesting platform. And it was very much about community, very much about sharing. So I started writing, I will admit in public, it's okay, my first name was Boogie Two Shoes on LiveJournal, don't ask. And I just love to write about things that were going on in university in Canada. And then I went traveling and I started writing about traveling. And a funny thing started happening because people started to respond and people started finding, even this stupid little LiveJournal, people started finding it and writing it. And I was writing like 500 words in a block text, no photos, right? Like just how far it's come, like what Macca has talked about, how far it's come in the past 14 years is unbelievable. But I just kind of kept doing it and loved it and just thought it was a great hobby. Then over the years, thought, okay, I really like writing. Okay, I'll do a master's in writing. Okay, I kind of like this. Oh, okay, I think I'm a travel blogger. And I'd switched to turning into this. And all of a sudden, I was taking this audience with me and people were coming and following along through these years. And now, that little LiveJournal, now it's a blog. And this year, I'm going to have 1 million page views on that blog of people reading it, right? So it's so fascinating to me how this has happened and how it's this huge business and how this is now my career. I work a little bit differently than Macca. I do some brand campaigns, but I actually love to do exactly what I'm doing right now, and that's to talk about the other side because I work for Expedia as well. So I'm a blogger half the time, well, all the time. Let's be real, I'm always doing this, and it is the hardest job I've ever had, but the best job I've ever had. But I also work 2 days a week for Expedia doing influencer marketing for them. I used to be full-time for them, gone down to part-time. So what I do is I help them, I help the SEO and the PR find the best people to work with. Because here's the thing, Mac has already proved to you why you should work with influencers. I'm not going to do any more of that. You know that you should work with us, clearly. I'm going to tell you how difficult it can be. I don't want to be like the dark rain cloud coming into the room, but really you have to really think about this and plan this well, because as everyone mentioned, there are a lot of things that you have to navigate and think about when you go to work with influencers. Macca is an amazing blogger and videographer. He has, the stats to back him up. He has the images. You can just see the images. They're amazing. But because this is such now an interesting, exciting, and lucrative industry, so many people want to get into it. And the scary thing is how easy it is to fake it. It's actually really terrifying, especially for people like Macca and I who've been around for a long time, that all of a sudden there are people who started 6 months ago and now they're getting all the campaigns and they're getting everything because what have they done? They've cut a lot of corners, or they've, as was mentioned, they've bought followers, things like that. So it's really difficult, and what I would say is absolutely work with influencers, but please know who you're working with and do a little bit of research. Some things that I do when I'm looking into people is I kind of stalk them. Like, I know that's kind of an illegal term, but really, I stalk them. I really look at what they're doing. I follow them daily. I look at who's commenting on their posts. I look at who's commenting on their Instagram. I see what's going on. I use tools online. So one of the tools that I use online, which is, honestly, this is my favorite thing ever. I was just talking about it with a few people. Social Blade. If you haven't heard of Social Blade, this is amazing. So Social Blade, like a knife. And it's incredible because it will show you all the detailed stats. It will show you what that person is doing daily on their social media. It will tell you things like how many people they followed in a day and how many people they unfollowed in a day. So for example, if I'm looking at an influencer and I'm thinking, oh wow, this person has a huge Instagram following, but then I go to Social Blade and I see, but wait a second, they're following 800 people per day and then unfollowing those same 800 the next day. That seems a bit weird. That seems like they're cutting corners to me. Do I want to work with somebody who's doing that, who's buying followers, or do I want to work with somebody who has more of the, I don't know, a little bit more legitimate, who's actually worked really hard? People are following them because they take great photos. So Social Blade is one that I love to use. SimilarWeb is one where you can check blog stats. It's not always 100% because I know I've checked my own blog and I was like, what? No, I get I get more on that, but it is something to think about. But really, it's about knowing the influencers, knowing the people, looking at the other campaigns. So take a look. Most people will say, I'm sure, Macca, you say on your website some of the campaigns that you've worked with, or for me, I'll say on my blog, I'll say, oh, I've worked with, Visit Denmark and this hotel and these people. So look at what they've done in the past and really kind of do your investigative work. This is such an amazing industry, and I absolutely love it. And I think what's so exciting about it is that it changes daily, but that can also be a challenge, of course, that we always have to stay on top of things. For me, I've been in this industry for 14 years, and every day I keep reading, I keep coming to talks like this, I keep doing it, because it is such a fast-paced, fast-moving industry that it can feel very overwhelming sometimes. But really, it's just about stepping back a bit, taking a look at what people are doing, taking a look at those influencers and making sure that they seem like legitimate. I always look at who's commenting on the blog. If you have apparently a huge blogger and they get 0 blog comments, what's going on there? Because blog comments are still one of the only things that you cannot fake. Thank God. There's still one thing, but that's always really interesting to me that I take a look at. On Expedia's side, what we do, so we work in a variety of ways with people, and really we just want to work with people who produce great quality, great content. So it doesn't matter, as Macca was saying, maybe somebody does have 1 million page views, or YouTube views, or they have millions of Instagram followers, but we want to look and see who's producing the best content and who's their audience. Because exactly as Macca said about the age, I don't want to sound too ageist, but if you are a luxury hotel, does it make sense to hire a 19-year-old Instagrammer to come and maybe look really good in a bikini by the pool, of course, and she has 3 million followers, and I don't want to knock that person, but who's her following? Are those people going to then be booking your luxury hotel? Or does it make a lot more sense to work with somebody who's, let's say, 45, and their audience is similar, and you know that maybe they only have 10,000 followers, but their audience are going to be the people who are then going and booking that hotel? I don't know. Anything else I should talk about? I didn't prepare any slides, but I know. So Macca talked about his different campaigns that he's worked on, and I think it's been really interesting to me to see the campaigns I've worked on and who I've worked with and how they are willing to work with influencers. And I think what's also really exciting is how many people do want to work with influencers and that they see the value. Because as was discussed about celebrities, while these celebrities are these huge people, and who knows exactly what we said, if people are going to trust that celebrity. Whereas for me, I've had some amazing experiences as an influencer and done some incredible things around the world. And I know this sounds really, really cheesy, but one of the best and most memorable things for me are the emails and the comments that I get from readers and from people who say, wow, this was so cool. Like, I went into this too. Thank you so much for doing that. And I'm not sure, I respond to every single comment and every single email, and I'm not sure if you can get that with a huge celebrity. So I think that's been really amazing for me with influencer marketing, just that you can really speak to the people one-on-one. And I love doing that. I love working with brands, with companies, and being that connection and being that voice and saying, you know what, I know exactly how to promote this because I know my audience like the back of my hand. They've been with me for 14 years. I know them really well. And I think that that's probably the key thing from working with influencers.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So we actually have quite a few questions that are coming to the poll, but I think we've got the answers. I'll pass over to Sarah, and then we'll take some questions which will probably feed to all of us.
Okay, so our first poll, we asked, are you using or planning to use influence as part of your marketing strategy? So 79% of you said yes, 3% said no, and 17% of you said you don't know enough about it. Dan, do you feel that that kind of reflects the kind of interest that we've had over the last couple of years, that brands are looking more to work with influencer marketing?
Yeah, I think that there's definitely a shift towards the importance of influencer marketing. I think there's also, you know, an education piece which comes alongside that in terms of, you know, what they're going to do, how you're going to engage them. Cost is always a big question that comes up in the cards when we talk about influencer marketing. But you know, I think the way that the particularly SEO is going to move in, and thinking about how you can extend through the most effective channels, and again, you know, you only have to look at all the social channels that you use and all the social channels that you know the young and up and coming, you know, kids are using. That's the way to communicate with your people, and I think, you know, having influencers who are, you know, big in those channels is absolutely crucial.
Thank you. And the second poll we asked you was, what do you understand to be the greatest benefit of using influencer marketing as part of your strategy? 59% of you said brand awareness, 10% said increased reach, 14% said link building, 17% increased traffic to site. So that's the results for one. And I think now we can move into our questions.
There's quite a few questions. I think we've got some multiple likes on some of them as well.
Yes, okay. So I'll start off with our first one is, how is domain authority calculated? So Hannah, is that the best one to give?
Yeah, I can. So, I mean, this is actually a metric from Moz, and it's actually a collection of multiple different metrics within that. So it looks at things like the number of backlinks to a website, the sort of trust of that website, and multiple other things like that too. So it is kind of a made-up metric in a world. So it's something to sort of review and keep in mind, because it can give you an indication of a website, but it's an algorithm that constantly gets updated. So the factors within that change over time. So you'll see domain authorities fluctuating, even if the site itself hasn't changed, because the algorithm behind that has actually changed, and they've sort of updated the way that they've been doing it. So it is something that you can look at. But again, if you're sort of using domain authority for a brand's website, it might be an easier metric to use because they have a full team behind them in terms of like an SEO team, like the digital marketing side. On a blog, if you're using that as a strength of how well that site's going to rank, people who are bloggers aren't necessarily SEO specialists. They will do a bit of SEO within what they do naturally, and their sites will sort of be on certain keywords based on the topic that they cover, but they're not sort of employing full-term practices to try and influence their DA. They're focusing on their stories and adventures, and it's just something that naturally comes about. So I would definitely keep that sort of with a pinch of salt when you're looking at domain authority.
And domain authority, I guess it's a tool originally created to mimic or put a measurement against what Google would view as their algorithm, which is hidden. So essentially it's trying to mimic what Google sees and put a representative number so that we can kind of understand.
Okay. So the next question is, how do influencers know how much to charge for their services? Now, Macca, I know you touched on pricing before, so I'm going to hand that question over to you.
I think it's a really murky environment. I mean, essentially a brand's going to want to spend as little money as possible, and an influencer's going to want to get as maximum as possible. In terms of how much that is, no one knows. Me personally, I speak to a lot of other influencers in the field, and we can all collectively put our experience in together. So if there's a campaign coming up and it will be 2 blog posts and a video, I'll probably say to them, what would you charge for this? And you kind of get a rough idea of what the path of the course is. I also think, you know, you should be open about it, as I've said before. Like, if you know that you've got £2,000 to spend, having in your mind what you want out of that, how many pieces of content, how long you want the campaign to run for. If it's a 3-month campaign, tell the influencer that. And then just basically say, like, this is what we're offering. Can you do it? Yes or no? And then find the right person. I know that obviously you're going to want content for free. Everyone wants content for free. I think the thing is with free content is you get what you pay for, which is nothing. You're going to get something which isn't necessarily that good. I always like to use the plumbing analogy. If you've got a really nice house, you're not going to get an apprentice to fix the plumbing for you. You're going to get a professional. So yeah, I think that kind of answers it on my side. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, you know, one of the most horrible things is when you get an email and somebody says all this and they say, okay, sure, how much, you know, are you going to pay? And I say, I just got one of these a couple of days ago and I said, well, actually, we prefer to work with people who are just passionate about the project and don't necessarily, you know, need the monetary value to film. It's like, well, then why are you coming to me? Then go to somebody who, you know, maybe is just getting started. Or I always think if you don't have the money, then maybe you shouldn't be working with influencers, because really, as we've shown, like I often work 18 hours a day to do this, or you know, work for so long on this, and if you think it's worth nothing, then what kind of value am I going to provide in return? You know, so I think definitely it is murky, and I think we still try to figure out what to be paid for certain campaigns and what we do.
Great, thank you. So the next question is again for one of our influencers. Do you use affiliate marketing links? If so, how does it work?
Yeah. So I just got into affiliate. So I've actually never monetized my blog. I have no advertising whatsoever on my blog, and I never will. But I do, the one thing that I just got into is affiliate marketing. So I say very clearly, I think it's very, very important that you have to be extremely transparent and let your readers know right away that this is an affiliate link, meaning if they click that link to your product and they purchase it, I will get a small commission, and every site is going to work differently. We just look at Amazon directly. If they click, then they purchase something on Amazon, I'm going to receive a small commission from that. So for me, I only recommend things that I really, really love, that I'm already using. Often I bought them myself, and then I just say, oh, everyone's asking what kind of camera I use, so may as well put an affiliate link and hope that somebody buys a 600-pound camera on my Amazon link. Hasn't happened yet, so you'd be shocked to see so many people click it and then they just do their shopping, so it's actually quite fun because you get to see what everybody buys on Amazon. But yeah, I think that's the way that I use it, but there are many affiliate sites with brands, with hotels, with so many different things.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that really answered the question.
No, it did. I think, like, also following on from that, like, I think it's very important to state that it's sponsored content, whatever it is, or if it's affiliate content that you're telling your audience that. Yeah, you have to by law for a start.
Yeah.
Also, like, the relationship between a brand and an influencer should be a happy thing. It should be something that you want to shout about anyway. So when I work with companies like Learning Planet, of course I'm happy to say that I work with them. If anything, it elevates the professionalism of what I'm providing, and also like the consumer, the person who's reading that or watching that video, knows that it's good quality content. So yeah, I think it's very important to have that, specifically with affiliates. Yeah, I think a lot of bloggers are doing it. Some companies are better to work with than others. An awful company is Booking.com, because they don't save cookies. So like when people click through, when people click through to a hotel, if they don't book immediately and go off, then that cookie's lost. So you're never going to make money on it. So it's very hard to convert that into an actual like booking stage.
Yeah.
But some companies are excellent at it. Hostelworld, for example, you don't make necessarily that much money off someone booking a £20 a night dorm, but you know they keep cookies for like 30 days. So for example, that's quite a good little company to work with.
And I think something else to be said is what we haven't really touched on so much. We have to remember how smart the readers and the consumers are. They're not dumb. They know what we're doing. They know what we're promoting. So if we're not completely transparent, we're going to get called out on that, absolutely. So if we work with anything, and sometimes now I actually put disclaimers if I have paid for everything myself, because I want to make sure nobody thinks, like if I say, oh my God, I absolutely love this product, I try to throw in a line saying like, when I bought it, or like when, you know, because I want to make sure that people don't think I'm trying to subtly do that, because absolutely consumers are very, very smart. They know what's happening. They know about influencer marketing. They know that they're being, you know, sold to if we are trying to sell to them.
Okay, great, thank you. How can influencers work with B2B businesses?
So for me, so I guess it all depends, and it all goes down to the data and the research stage, and it's finding your particular topic and your niche or your product. At the end of the day, everybody's a person, so it's about tapping into the interests of the person as well as the interests of the brand, and you do that via your data and your research to actually make sure that what you're specifically targeting, whether it's a content campaign or whatever it is that you're doing, plays and matches what an influencer would be working on. So there's an example where businesses or people that participate within businesses might be a subset of a particular group that you're trying to target. It might be executives or entrepreneurs, and that's just one section that could be. There's many opportunities, but it's all down to finding a particular niche within what you're trying to target. And when you have that, then you go and try and find an influencer that matches that, already has that audience. Again, I would just say it's all down to making sure that there's a commonality between the brand of the influencer and the brand that you're trying to promote, making sure that it matches and that you know what you're trying to target. Again, it's all down to return on investment. If you're not targeting something specifically, you're not matching a specific niche, then you actually can't measure performance, you can't know whether it works or not. So it's about understanding the data and doing a lot of research to then to find the right influencer.
What are the telltale signs that someone is using a bot to grow traffic?
I love talking about this. I think it gets pretty obvious when you take a look at, when you really start looking at things. It's very obvious on Twitter and Facebook if things are fake, because they will have a high number and they will have no engagement. I mean, you'll see bloggers who have 10,000, let's say 10,000 likes on Facebook. When you go to one of their posts, they have 3 likes on the post. Obviously, something's not lining up here. Instagram is a tricky beast, and Instagram is the one that, of course, now everybody wants to work with. Everyone wants to be an Instagrammer. Everybody wants to work with Instagrammers because it's the most popular thing. With that, use Social Blade. You can find out a lot on Social Blade. Unfortunately, now people can buy likes, people can buy comments. You can buy everything on Instagram. So it is extremely difficult. As I said, one of the key things to do is to stalk that person. You can stalk that person by putting on, you can get notified when they post. So as soon if you happen to be around, your phone is there, if you see that they've posted, watch what happens to their photo right away. If you start watching what's happening on their photo, watch who's liking it right away. Now, if all of a sudden a bunch of weird names start coming up that don't look like real followers, it goes through phases. Sometimes the names look like they're coming from China, sometimes from Russia, sometimes from, seriously, like you see the different, and all of a sudden it will just be like within 30 minutes, they'll have 2,000 of these profiles where if you actually click on them, they're fake profiles. They have maybe a profile picture, they're always private, they haven't uploaded any photos. You can tell right away because those likes are going to be bought instantly, because Instagram works. Really, if your photo isn't seen within the first 10 minutes, then the photo is pretty much forgotten in the algorithm. So the people want to buy the bot, so they like the photo immediately, and they'll start to comment. These hands, this, all that stuff, those are often fake. Not always on the influencer's part. Sometimes people are putting the comments on another person's profile, but just be aware. Just look at who's actually commenting. Look at who's actually liking, because it will be, if Macca comes and comments on mine, it will hopefully not just have the praying hands or something. Like hopefully he'll say, like, wow, that's really cool, Brenna, or something that makes it a little bit more legitimate. But you really just have to watch that person and find. But there are tools like Social Blade that help a lot.
Okay, thank you. We have got lots more questions, but I think we're just going to answer a few more in this session. We will be putting all the answers to all the questions in the PowerPoint, and you'll all receive a copy of those. So if your question isn't answered in this session, then it will be, so don't worry. So we're going to move on to the next one, is how do you find influencers in your niche? Helene, do you want to?
Yes, so this is obviously, and it'd probably be worth grabbing the content marketing framework just to understand the data and the research elements. But it would be, first of all, finding out, you say your niche, but actually you probably want to go a little bit further into another level to find out actually what topic are you, and it depends really where you're coming from. Is it a content piece, or is it you're just trying to find from a brand perspective? If it's from a brand perspective, it's a bit more broad. So yes, you could go down the niche. And then it's a lot of manual research, finding out who's talking within your field. You've got to understand what your audience is, and then try and find an influencer that matches your audience. And there's lots of different tools that you can use. I mean, Hannah does this on a regular basis, and we have a team within the business that does it, but it's very manual, it's very time consuming, and there's a lot of, I guess as Brenna's kind of commented on, there's a lot of things there's a lot of fake people you have to go through and you have to check, so it's manual. Is this person a real person? Have they got a captivated audience? Are they engaging? And looking at the metrics that Hannah mentioned, so yes, what kind of value are they going to provide you as a business? But there's lots of different fields. So what social channels are they on? Do they have videos? Is it a domain authority? And it all depends on what your original motivation is. Because if it's not from an SEO perspective and it's more a brand awareness piece, then you're not as focused on the domain authority of the website. And then you might want to look for something else. So it's really kind of takes you back to what is the core motivation. And then outside of that, you've got the data and the insights piece. So it's really about understanding what is it that you're trying to achieve, what specific metrics are you interested in, what do you need to work so that you can have a return on investment, and then looking for an influencer that matches those. And when you found your influencers, it's about checking and doing another lot of research into the influencer. Where are they engaging? And as Brenna was saying, all of those other little elements. So it is very time consuming. But once you do find somebody, and if you do build a good relationship, it's very lucrative relationships for both sides. And I did see another message, or one of the questions that kind of relates to this. It was about contributors and ambassadors. So there was a question, what's a contributor and what's an ambassador? A contributor is somebody that, say, from a content marketing perspective, who can actually feed into your content piece. So they can add, whether that's images, videos, or text, and you can collaborate together on a content marketing campaign. An ambassador is somebody who is not going to contribute to the piece, but likes the piece, values it, recognises its value for their audience, and will want to share it with their audience, and they are an advocate of your brand or your content. Sorry to hijack too.
No, that's good.
Can I just throw one thing too that I do at Expedia to find people to work with? So number one, I go to tons of conferences and talks in London. London is amazing for that. There are so many events, so many talks, so many parties with influencers where you can go and just sign up like on Eventbrite. And so I go and do that. And the other thing, I always look and see who are the speakers at the conferences, because that's a good place to start, because often they're going to have people who hopefully know what they're talking about when they get up on the stage. And then finally what I do is I reach out to people I already work with and like, and say, hey, who are your friends? Who do you work with? Who do you trust? Honestly, tell me, we've already worked together, we had a really great time. Because this is a competitive industry, but we also are friends, and we're going to help each other out. And if I know, for example, I can't do something, but Macca would be great for that, then I'm going to recommend him, So I think really to have those great relationships with people, and to just ask, to say who else can you recommend? Do you have any friends who might?
I guess that we just to add to that, with us we cover a wide variety of different topics and niches. So I guess that's where our approach is slightly different, because you can't have intimate relationships with all the influencers, but we do have a lot. But that's where it comes down to really understanding particular niche and topics within that to then match that with somebody. And when that kind of takes this big general view of influencers and cuts it down massively to something really specific, and at that point when you've got a smaller set to research, it makes the whole process a lot easier.
Thank you. We touched on demographics a bit, but is influencer marketing appropriate for older audiences, for example, 60 plus, who aren't as active on social media?
Yeah, well, we've actually done a study. Were you going to speak?
No, go for it.
Well, we were working with a brand that specifically wanted to target, I think it was over 55s, and high net worth, luxury travellers, and where they were very active. It's about understanding, one, who's your demographic, who you're targeting, and then what are their behaviours and where are they? And they found they were on LinkedIn a lot, and they were very business focused, and they were really interested in business magazines and golf and entrepreneurs, and they were following big names, and this was in Canada. So we worked with Mark Cuban from the equivalent of Owls and Dragons then, it's Shark Tank, and worked with him to promote the piece. But it is about understanding you as a brand, who's your audience, and then finding the relevant influencer who has a captive audience of that target market. But yes, the answer is yes, that it's spread across all the different age ranges.
Yeah, and I guess it's just where they are as well, because we did quite a lot of research earlier on in the year about sort of empty nesters and their blogs. So a lot of the time they had sort of smaller audiences, but again quite engaged following of people who primarily it was on their websites as opposed to on social media, but they were really sort of strong sources of information. So their kids had left home and it was their part of their life now to go away and sort of do their adventures and what they wanted to do, and to sort of build networks with other people in that sort of similar location. So there's definitely a market out there. It's just sort of how you identify them, and just knowing that maybe their numbers won't be as big as some of the sort of younger influencers out there.
And maybe not everybody uses social media, but most people can use Google, right? And I think that's why it's always good to work with people who have diversified platforms where they have the social media, but they also have a strong, good blog, because a lot of people are still finding this through SEO and through Google, not just Instagram.
I think we probably have time just for a couple.
Yeah, no, I think we have two more. So we've got one here from Paul. As influencer marketing matures, do Brenna, Macca and influencers partnering with brands they work with pay attention to the return on investment, such as attrition to booking?
Yeah, this is the biggest problem right now. It's very hard to quantifiably measure how much an influencer is actually pumping back into your business. One way is through affiliates. I've worked with tour companies where I can track obviously how many click-throughs are going through to that tour company and then also going to conversions and booking. I think that's great because it shows how much money I am making for that company. I think on other bigger campaigns, yeah, for sure it's hard. I mean, with the Monarch example, I don't know how many people of the 75,000 people who watched that video are going to go and book a Monarch flight. I don't know how I can measure that yet. I think there will be tools in the future which will be able to do that, and I can't wait for that because it's going to show our worth even more. But yeah, I think it's important to make sure that you look at things like tracking links, whether it's on websites, whether that's through affiliates, just so you've got something to measure.
And it's important to remember too that people might not necessarily be converting at that initial stage, but for example, you talked about Greenland being a destination. Someone might have not considered that previously, and then they might have that in their mind as their next sort of big trip, and it might not be within 5 days of someone doing that blog post, but it could be a year or two down the line. So it's important to remember that there's sort of that funnel, effectively, of people sort of discovering that and then going away and doing their additional research, and they might not book it through an affiliate link through the site, for example, but it could be that one thing that triggered that chain of events further down the funnel.
Great, thanks. So we're just going to have our final question. Like I said, we will answer any of the rest of the questions in the presentation. We'll send around a copy of that. But this one is probably for Helena. I think it'll be quite a quick answer. And it is, does Melt therefore source influencers for channels? So can we source influencers?
Yes, that's exactly what we do. And I presume with the channels it means you've got a marketing campaign, whether that's from an SEO perspective, brand awareness, social media. Yes, we do all of that. And that's from, I guess, where we specialise in is understanding the data, the research, to finding what's the right strategy and therefore who's the right influencer that we want to bring in, and then the actual outreach. We do the whole thing. So finding the specific or actually we always look for quite a few influencers, because it's not, when you do first reach out to somebody, it's not often that they're going to say yes or work with you, or so we have to actually broaden it, and then we always make sure that it's right for the brand. So there's quite a long-winded process, but we're very tight with our process, and we've got a methodical approach. So that kind of takes me on to the wrapping up. Essentially, we've got another digital breakfast on the email marketing framework, and that is on the 29th of June, so please do save the date if you're interested. I would invite you to come and take, if you're interested in content marketing, come and take a copy of our content marketing framework wheel. On the back you'll find the details for the video and downloadable guide. There's also a downloadable guide that literally launched this week for the EMF, and you can also see that on our website at /EMF. And we're around this morning, so if there's anything that you want to speak to us about, here's our contact details if you'd rather do it via email, but we're here, so we've got Carl, any of the Melt members. If there's anything that you're interested in today, any of our services, please do come and let us know, and then we'll have a chat and we can follow it up with yourselves. So thank you very much, and thank you very much for the speakers today.